Amid the suffocating panic, Tetsuhachi reveals his terrifying form, his threatening eyes gleaming in the darkness. Dark smoke swirls around, slowing every motion and deepening the tension. Kujo realizes that this danger is unavoidable, and the weight of dread shakes his once steadfast resolve. The glint in Tetsuhachi's eyes shifts gradually from emptiness to awareness, as though his memories and spirit are resurfacing. His frail body moves cautiously, each motion signaling an awakening from despair. Kujo holds his breath, sensing that the grandfather he once knew may be returning, yet the aura of danger has not completely faded. In the quiet night under a faint glow, Tetsuhachi sits upright behind NERO, his hand resting on the young girl's head as if to shield her. Starlight filtering through the trees casts a dramatic contrast between the frail old man's figure and the serene nature around them. Kujo, battered and weary, watches wide-eyed, sensing both a glimmer of hope and wariness at Tetsuhachi's unexpected shift in demeanor. Beneath the night sky, illuminated by a distant, otherworldly light, Tetsuhachi sits upright with NERO resting in his lap, his presence calm yet shrouded in mystery. Kujo watches in silence, his gaze fixed on the beam piercing the heavens and the suddenly sacred atmosphere. The night breeze whispers softly, as if the world itself holds its breath, witnessing a moment that will change everything. With the last of her strength, NERO slowly pushes herself upright, her eyes weary, yet her determination unbroken. She grips the wooden staff tightly, while a thin mist envelops the distant forest, amplifying the silence and uncertainty. In that quiet moment, her simple movement carries the subtle message that hope has not yet been extinguished. NERO wakes up, her worried voice trembling as she calls out her grandfather's name. The forest's silence suddenly feels oppressive as she moves in a panic, calling for Tetsuhachi again and again. Kujo, lying down as he observes the situation, watches anxiously, aware of the tension enveloping the moment. With a worried expression, Kujo realizes that Tetsuhachi has left his tools behind, an unusual sign that shakes his confidence. NERO clutches her staff tightly, struggling against the fear of an irreversible separation. The forest's shadows grow darker, and every step she takes to find Tetsuhachi radiates determination born of desperation. Kujo watches her, trying to steady his anxious heart while reminding himself that hope has not yet been completely lost. Kujo gazes at NERO with fragile calm, trying to explain that Tetsuhachi's decision to leave was made to protect her. His words hang heavy in the air, burdened by the harsh reality of a world where humans can turn into monsters at any moment. NERO stands frozen, her eyes wide with a mix of denial and dawning understanding, while the forest's shadows seem to affirm the bitter truth she struggles to accept. NERO shouts with a voice trembling with determination, declaring their promise to stay together until the very end. Yet her steps falter as the bitter reality strikes again. Tetsuhachi's decision might have been made to protect them. Kujo looks down, his voice low but firm, admitting that in the same situation he too would have made the same choice to protect those he loves. Kujo speaks with a calm yet empathetic tone, assuring NERO that Tetsuhachi likely thought of her as his own daughter and that the fear of harming her must have been unbearably heavy. Hearing this, NERO's emotions erupt, grief, anger, and denial colliding, prompting her to scream, rejecting the bitter truth she doesn't want to accept. Driven by overwhelming emotion, NERO shouts angrily, demanding what Kujo could possibly know about Tetsuhachi, her voice cracking with grief. Kujo reaches out, trying to calm her, warning that staying together will only deepen the pain. But NERO rejects his words, clutching her staff tightly as she runs, tears streaming down her face, determined not to give in to loss. NERO runs through the forest, her heart consumed by anger and sorrow, convinced that no one could truly understand her bond with Tetsuhachi. Kujo can only watch her leave, his lips parting in a powerless whisper. In her mind, NERO rejects the notion that a stranger like Kujo could comprehend Tetsuhachi after such a brief encounter, memories of her grandfather flashing through her thoughts like irreplaceable shadows. With tears beginning to fall, NERO runs while gripping her staff tightly, her heart shaken by fear and loss. The thought of losing Tetsuhachi makes the world around her feel as if it's collapsing, leaving her with the painful question of how she will go on. Her widened eyes reveal deep shock and dread, as though her future has suddenly lost its way. NERO is violently thrown to the ground after a brutal strike hits her, blood and dust scattering into the air. Sharp pain engulfs her senses, yet the determination in her eyes has not completely faded. Amid the haze of despair and lurking danger, she struggles to lift herself again, clinging to a fragile hope even as the world around her seems to collapse. Amid rising panic, NERO stares in horror as the terrifying end human hoists a massive stone, ready to strike with lethal force. Her breath comes in ragged gasps, fear gripping every part of her being. The air around them feels tense, as if the world itself has paused, witnessing a perilous moment that could end everything in an instant. Grievously wounded, NERO crawls across the ground, blood dripping from her body as she gasps for breath under the deadly threat of the end human. Fear momentarily engulfs her, but the realization that dying here would erase any chance of seeing Tetsuhachi again strengthens her resolve. With every ounce of strength left, she struggles to rise, refusing to surrender to the tragic fate awaiting her. With unflinching bravery, Kujo lunges at the end human, grappling the monstrous creature with all his strength to halt its assault. His scream echoes through the air, breaking the suffocating tension of the battlefield. NERO turns with wide eyes, fear and confusion mingling as she hears his desperate cry to run, realizing this sudden act of sacrifice may be their only chance at survival. Kujo, panting and drenched in sweat, manages to force the end human to the ground. Yet uncertainty grips his mind. He doesn't know what step to take next to survive. With a tense expression and his hands locked tightly around his enemy's neck, he feels the crushing force still resisting, a stark reminder of how fragile and dire their situation has become. With the last of his strength and unwavering resolve, Kujo grips the end human's neck tightly, his eyes burning with determination to survive. He knows that if he falls here, NERO will perish too, and the thought of losing her drives him to keep fighting even as his strength begins to fade. In the tense stillness, his decision to act becomes the single fragile line between life and death.